Good morning, everybody. Everyone's logging in right now, so we're going to give it just a moment for everybody to join us. Happy Friday. Yay, it's Friday. We've got great training today. We've got great training tomorrow. Doesn't matter that it's the weekend, everybody. We're still continuing with awesome professional development. It's wonderful to see you this morning. We have people still coming in, so I'm just waiting just a moment. Renee Marshall coming from El Camino College. I'm a consultant that I work with TEACH LARC, which is a regional collaboration with 17 colleges in of the Los Angeles colleges. And we're so happy to offer professional learning and professional development right now. Many of you have been here for a lot of it, and I'm so appreciative. We literally have like 2 more weeks, and then it's going to go really quiet. So keep with us. I appreciate your commitment to yourself, your commitment to your students. That's an important thing to have and to keep. And so thanks for spending Friday morning with us. We're excited. So we've got Jolie McDonald here. Jolie is one of my favorite teachers in all of California. I'm going to be totally honest. I had the pleasure of working with Jolie about 20 years ago, and she is by far one of the most talented teachers I've ever worked with. She also, for anybody who's in Intro to Teaching, which is an EDU course, Jolie served as a cooperating teacher for those fieldwork students for probably the entire like 20 years that we've known each other. She's been like a master teacher, or, she's served as a mentor for many, many years. And so, Jolie, we're so thrilled that you're here today. I'm going to hand it over to you.
You.
And thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure you introduce yourself in the chat and let us know who's here today.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just play a little song just to get us all like in the right mind frame. So just take I won't be too long, just a little bit of a song for you to kind of just get in the good morning mind frame.
Jolie, we can't hear it for some reason.
Can you hear it now?
There we go.
You can't hear it? Okay, well, my song of the day, I always start my day in my classroom with the song of the day. I feel that music is one of the most important things. It's the first thing our brain learns and the last thing our brain forgets. So music is extremely powerful. It's extremely universal. And I don't know, it just makes you feel good. No matter what time of the day it is, no matter what kind of music. I think it's important that students hear all different kinds of genres of music. So to me, that's really important. And so my song of the day this morning was Respect. And you will see how important the word respect is for me throughout my presentation. Because we all should respect each other. We, in education, we're all equal. As an educator and as a teacher, I don't feel that I was any better than the yard duty or the custodian. And so respect is very, very important for me. So that is why I picked that song of the day. And my name is Jolie McDonald. I taught, let's see, for 21 years. I am currently not teaching. I'm going to be starting some new adventures in life. My new adventure this year was watching my grandson and just taking a year off. I taught, like I said, for 21 years at Live Oak Elementary. I was only at one school. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it just became home. And I lived in the community that I taught in. And a lot of people do not like to do that, but I loved it. I loved seeing my students at the store. I loved being able to talk to my students and my parents. And so that was a lot of fun. I am a mom to 4. I'm a stepmom to 2 children, which I have raised. And I have one in her first year of college. She's coming home next week. And a son who will be 16. And I have a second grandkid on the way. So I'm pretty busy. My life has totally shifted and changed to a different direction. And as much as it's scary, I'm taking time to absorb that and just learn and try some new things other than being in the classroom. So I was so excited for Renee to ask me to do this because this is stuff that I love to do. I love to share what I do. And so I'm going to start by asking you, and you guys can raise your hands. How many of you speak a different language? How many of you speak a different language? Okay, and I have 2 pages to go through. I'm going to check this all out. And just to let you know, while you're raising your hand and doing all that, I have another monitor. I have a monitor up above my laptop because I need to see everything. And that's something that's very important for me, especially when I'm doing a Zoom, that you're not in little boxes on my laptop kind of thing. And I'm doing something on my screen on my laptop. So I invested in a monitor last year. And so all my students were up on top on the monitor. So you're all on the monitor. So when I look up, I'm looking up at my monitor. So, we have a lot of people who speak a second language. I love it. So if you do speak a second language, and even if it's just a little bit, can you type in the chat what language you speak so I can see exactly what we have today? All right, love it, I love it. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. Oops. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All right. Well, great. This is great. All right. Well, I don't speak a second language. So I just have to be very honest with you. I speak a tiny bit of Spanish because a lot of my students spoke Spanish. So I just speak a little bit of Spanish. I went to school and I went to a private school and we learned French. So I did French and then I took French in high school. And then I took some Spanish in college, but it's so confusing for me because when I look at Spanish, I go from Spanish to French to English, back to French to Spanish, and I'm a little bit everywhere kind of thing. And so I don't speak a lot. And that's okay. If some of you speak a little bit and know a little bit, that is great. But this is something that's very important. And this is what I tell all my students at the very beginning, and I capitalize on this. If you speak a second language, you're actually smarter than I. And when I tell my students that, a lot of them are very surprised. They're like, what? You know, especially the younger kids. I'm smarter than you? Why, yes, you are, because you speak 2 languages. I only speak 1 language. You are bilingual. Some of you are trilingual. Okay, but I only speak 1 language. So the fact that you speak another language is absolutely amazing. And it makes you smarter than a lot of us, because just think about what you have to do just in order to do work sometimes. In order to do work sometimes, you have to read something, and then in your mind, you have to put it into the, and I dealt with mostly Spanish speaking students. So when I refer to things, I will refer to Spanish. But you have to put a lot of things, then you have to put it into Spanish, then you have to think of the answer, then you have to go back to English. Just think how hard you work. My goodness gracious, you are amazing, amazing, amazing. And then your English only or your EOs, of course, they want to be part of that. Well, I speak another language too. Well, and then I always say, well, great, that is so great, because everybody, the students, they want to be just as great every time you give a big compliment. But it is so important for your second language learners to understand how brilliant they are and how important it is that the fact that they do have to come to school. And a lot of times, if you put yourself in their position, that they do have to go back and forth from English to their native language, back to English again. And how difficult that is, and how draining and exhausting that is during the day. And I don't think, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful to teachers, but I think a lot of times educators don't think about that. They don't think about how all the work that these students are doing in their head. It's not just like you and I were like, oh, we're reading this and it just totally makes sense. Okay. They have a lot more going on in their brains. So you need to give them grace. You need to make sure that you make them superstars, because they are superstars and they need that respect. They need you to put them up on a pedestal because they deserve that. They speak a second language. And I also tell my students too, if I go apply for a job, I know that most of you who are here, when you have applied for a job, they always ask you if you speak a second language. I don't. And I explain to my students that they will probably get picked before I do for a job a lot of times. And we might be looking at the same job and all of a sudden, oh, you speak a second language, well, we need you. And when I explain that to my students, all of a sudden, my second language learners, you could just see, because when they walk into a room, their body language tells you everything. And I know for me, in all the years I've taught, my second language learners do not ever walk into a classroom like, yeah, they always just kind of walk in like quiet, reserved, out on the playground. They're not quite in reserved, but they always walk in just their body language. They're very closed, very closed. And you want to break that right away. And you want to give them the respect that they deserve. And so I always start the beginning of the year with that. And I talk about it throughout the year too, because then they kind of forget about it, and I bring it back where it's like, okay, let's hear from our Spanish speaking friends. Who wants to speak a little Spanish for us? And then all of a sudden, again, everybody speaks Spanish. Everybody's a Spanish speaker in your class. Or somebody's like, oh, I speak Thai. Oh, great. How about you tell us something? And then everybody's like, well, I speak Thai too. So it's a fun thing, but you make that student a superstar, and you could just all of a sudden see them sitting. They just start to sit, and they start sitting up straighter, and they're prouder and prouder. And that's what you need. So thank you for those of you who shared. I love it. I read all those. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Okay. I love to tell stories. I always say story time to my students. And a lot of times some of them, oh, another story, and I think they sometimes just do that because, they like to be that way. But I do have situations and stories that I am going to share with you. One of my other things that I do want to talk about with the capitalizing on second language is when you have conferences with your parents. And Renee and I were kind of chatting about this before we all joined the Zoom. The parents will say to you that their child doesn't want to speak their native language at home anymore. And I had this in kindergarten, I had this in fourth grade, I had this in sixth grade. And as they get older, you hear it more where they're like, they just want to speak English. Well, I speak Spanish to them, but they only speak English back. And one of my first questions to the parents is, do you just speak do you speak Spanish at home to your child? What goes on at home? I also ask the student, because it's really important to know with your student what goes on at home, what they speak. And I always tell the parent and the student, it is so important that you speak your native language at home. Do not ever be embarrassed. And when I tell you that that is important, that is one of the most important things that I hope you can take from today, is that you let your parents know that and you let your students know that. Because while you're taking classes and while you're learning, you will learn that as soon as you know your native language well, your second language comes quicker. But if you have a disconnect in the two because you start kindergarten and you're disjointed, all of a sudden you don't have, let's say, Spanish words, and you haven't learned those Spanish words, and then all of a sudden you start learning these English words and you don't have a word to connect them to. So all of a sudden your language becomes very disjointed. And so I make it very clear to my students, I make it very clear to my parents that they have plenty of time to learn English and speak English. They're in school all day long. So they have plenty of time to speak English to their friends. When they go home, they need to speak their native language. And also, a lot of my students will tell me too, I understand Spanish, I just don't speak it. Well, that's not going to help you when you go get your job, So I get it, and then you start getting to know the parents, and it makes them sad, as a parent too, where it's like, I wanted my child to speak Spanish and they refuse. So very important, very, very, very important. Mucho importante, I would say. All right, so this goes hand in hand with getting to know your student personally. So personally and culturally. And I have a story. I had a student who came from Hungary, and he spoke zero English, and he understood a little bit of English because, of course, every country in school, they all learn English. So it's kind of an interesting thing when you have a student come, they're like, oh yeah, we learned English, we had English. So he understood, but he was also in sixth grade. So he was a little savvy too, where he would pretend like he didn't know things when he really didn't know things. And for me, I always love to get to know my students, no matter what. So I was like, okay, I have to find somebody who speaks Hungarian, and I'm going to find somebody, and then I'm going to take my student, and I'm going to have this parent interview. So I found a parent who spoke Hungarian, and she came in, and I just did a whole interview, like a whole list of things that I wanted to know about my student, and he loved it. It was just like the best thing ever. He was a superstar because I took the time to get to know him, and I broke that barrier. So be creative in figuring out the best way to reach your students when you don't speak their language, and the best way to work with them, because a lot of times, especially with a student like that, they just get pushed off to the side. And to be totally honest with you, my district wasn't the most equipped, and I was like, well, what else should I be doing? I don't know. Like, I don't have, like, I need more. And they're like, you know what? We know that you're a great teacher and you're doing the best you can do. And I'm like, no, Like, I'm not. I need more. I can't just push him aside. So I just, you know, became really creative, and just took a lot of time in just getting to know him and become invested with him. And all of a sudden, he became a star student, and his behavior changed. He wasn't having problems because he knew that I was invested in him and I respected him, and he started respecting me. So it was a great friendship that we had. And then he left towards the end of the year, and I didn't even get to say goodbye. And that was actually one of the hardest things ever, because I invested a lot of time in him breaking that barrier and getting to know him, and I didn't even know he was going to leave. It really did. And I had been teaching for a long time. I was just really sad I didn't get to say goodbye, because I just felt like I made a difference in his life. So it's my little fun little story. So getting to know your student personally will also help with homework situation. Understanding what your student's life is like at home, and you don't have to call them out. You know, you just can say, if you have some extra time and they're doing work, you just call one of your students over. So I know when I go home, first thing I do is get a snack, and then, you know, and so I model like what my day looks like, kind of thing. And then I do this, and then I do this. Blah, 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 blah. What does your day look like when you go home? What are the things that you do? And you would be surprised in how they open up and they explain things to you. And then you're like, okay, this all makes sense. Now I know why this isn't getting turned in, or they're having a hard time with homework, or they're having a hard time studying, or it literally makes your life so much easier by just taking a few minutes to just take them aside, and they love that as well. Absolutely love that. So that's very important. Alrighty. So let's see. One of the biggest things, and I had a lot of people raise their hands as well that were saying that they were they spoke another language. So hopefully not hopefully you can relate to this, but hopefully you understand this, and maybe some of you can relate to this. But at a very young age, our second language learners see that they're different. And I kind of already talked about that a little bit, but they really do. And a lot of times they have behavior problems as well. Either they have behavior problems, or they really distance themselves and they just feel like failures because they can't keep up with the rest of the class. And being an educator for 20 years and having a pretty big EL population, I'm not lying when I say that. I'm not. And even at the beginning with the younger kids, you know, and sometimes these kids will be helpful, but when I was teaching fourth grade, I had a student come in, actually, just kidding, it was sixth grade. I had a student come in, and he came in and he just sat down like this. He would have his backpack on and he would just sit down and just be crabby, just crabby. And everyone was like, oh, he's always been like this. You know, they all chime in, and it's amazing. And they're all like, oh, that's just how he is. He doesn't even do any work, you know. And the more they said that, the more proud he was, where he was like, oh, yes, I don't do work. I don't do anything, because failure was an option for him. Like, he just knew I could fail. I'm not gonna stay back in fifth grade. You're just gonna keep on moving me on, and I don't have to do anything, and I don't have to be held accountable. So for me, seeing that, I was like, my goodness gracious, you are not leaving my class like this at all. So I gave him a special desk, and because he just couldn't, because he didn't do anything, he wanted to take everybody else off task. I gave him a very special desk, and I said, this is your special desk because you are my special helper. And you are going to oversee my class, because he needed good role models and he needed to see what everyone else was doing. And I knew he wasn't going to do any work. So if he's not going to do any work, then I want him to watch everybody. I was like, oh, you're going to be the king, and you're the king in my classroom, and you're going to watch everybody. And all of a sudden he felt important. He was going to watch all the other students, and they were going to model what he needed to be doing. And then he got bored, and then he decided he did want to do some work. But I gave that a couple weeks. He'd always have his backpack on, and that would drive me crazy, because he would sit, his hair would be in front of his eyes, and he would just sit slumped every morning with his backpack on. He wouldn't get his agenda out. He just sat there. And again, I could just let that happen every single day and ignore that as a teacher, or get angry at him. All right, you know what? You're not following the directions, out, or you're not following the directions. I'm going to call your mom. Okay. No, that's what he wants. So I told him, and I thought maybe his backpack's like a comfortable thing for him. So I was like, I'll let him have his backpack, because that's something from home that comforts him. So after about a month, after he was king in the classroom, I said to him, okay, King, I'm going to have you take off your backpack, and every day when you walk in, all I expect from you is your backpack off and your agenda on your desk. And he kind of looked at me, and I was, that's it. That's all I want. That's all I need. I'll write in your agenda for you. And this is 6th grade. But the thing is I would give him one more responsibility, and I would keep on adding responsibility until all of a sudden he didn't even realize that he just started doing everything on his own, because he was set up to know that he didn't ever have to do anything. And I saw that with a lot of my second language learners, where they just know, oh, they're second language learners. You know what? They're not going to do well in school. We're just happy to have them in the classroom. And I don't know, to me, it breaks my heart, because I really do feel that a lot of times that's how our second language learners are viewed. And then we pull them out for extra class, and we help them and stuff, but we don't help our second language learners
This is Abby just
become
receiving a message.
students. And
At
that,
the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hey, Audrey, this is Chris from.
so that very, very important to me. So let me see here. All right, one more thing, and then we're going to take a little brain break.
I need to call her as well.
Everyone is different, and I did a presentation Wednesday night, and this is again so important to me, and especially for my second language learners.
Gary just started. Go ahead.
Renee's calling me. Hold on, I think she's having a hard time with her computer.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. Hey, Jolie.
Yes.
My whole computer's completely bugging out. I'm trying to log into a second computer, and so I'm going to tell everybody right now. Or don't tell them, but I'm gonna.
Well, you're actually on. I can't mute you, so.
Oh, everybody can hear me right now.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm gonna log out. If for some reason it logs the whole workshop out, just.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you want to, do you want to make me a host? Oh, okay. 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 I will let them know. Okay, it's gonna, what? Oh. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thanks. No, that's fine. Okay, bye. Okay. This reminds me of my life last year of computer issues. So Renee's computer was having issues, so she had to log off, but she wasn't sure if everybody was going to be thrown out of the meeting. But it worked, so we're all good to go. So anyways, everyone has a gift, and that is really important to me. And my second language learners, it's even more important because they don't feel that a lot of times that education is a gift. They feel that they're not good. They might not be good students. And so I always find something that my second language learners are good at. And that is so another thing that's so important. You need to invest in them. And once you invest in them, and like I was explaining to Renee too, a lot of strategies that you will pick up along the way, you know, like your SEDAI strategies and different things about how to teach your second language learners in your classroom. A lot of that you learn in school. A lot of the things that I feel that I'm giving to you are things that nobody ever tells you. And those are the most important things because nobody ever told me any of this. I never learned this in school, but I guess because of the type of person I am and the type of educator I am, I just figured this out on my own. And I know I don't like to brag, but now looking back at my career, I realize I always got all the second language learners in my class. They were always like, "Oh, Jolie, you're the best." And the behavior problems, "Oh, you take all those too." And whatever problems, "Oh, you're the best with them." And truly I was, because I took the time to get to know them. And a lot of the other teachers would be like, "Gosh, you know everything about your student. You're so nosy." And I'm like, well, they're my students. Like, I should know everything about them. I'm with them all the time. They're my babies. No matter how old they are, they're still my kids, always my kids. So getting to know them is, and what their gift is so important. I had a student who wasn't doing anything in class. It was just hard to get him motivated. He didn't really want to be in school. He didn't feel successful in school, and he would doodle all the time. And rather than me getting frustrated at him doodling all the time and doodling all over his paper, rather than taking notes and doing whatever, I was like, "Wow, you are a great artist," you know. And I started talking about that, and he was truly amazing. You know, this was in 4th grade. And so the holidays came around, and I decided that I wanted to bring him, because I knew that there was a lot going on in his family. I wanted to bring him a gift. And so I went and I bought him a art pad and special art pencils and color pencils. And I went to his house, and I showed up at his house, and I knocked on the door. And when they opened the door, I was saddened to see that there was nowhere for him to do homework. There was nowhere for him to put stuff. There was a lot of people that were living with him. And I hadn't been teaching for that long, so it was a big eye opener for me. And then I realized, wow, okay, I totally get this. This is why he's not doing homework. This is why he's not studying. This is why, like, he doesn't have a space. His drawings, his doodling, his art, that's his saving grace. That's what makes him feel successful and comfortable. And it's not that I expected less from him. It was just that he had different expectations as the other kids. And I didn't like just point it out, "Okay, well, you all have to do this, and you don't have to do that much." You know, it was done very discreetly. But when you know your students' lives and you figure out their gifts, yes, you treat them with a different type of respect, and not everybody has to see that. But once you do, they respect you because you've now invested in them. And after that day, I was one of those teachers that at staff meetings, people would say, okay, well, my kids aren't turning in their homework. And well, I'm going to have, their Friday fun. Okay, well, if they don't turn in their packets, they don't get to do Friday fun. And I would be that one squeaky wheel. Okay, well, my colleagues, you guys don't realize that some of these kids can't do their homework. Like, they don't have pencils at home. They don't have a table at home. They don't have what you and I are used to. Like, give them some grace. You keep on taking away Friday fun, where all of a sudden it's such a punishment, and it literally breaks the kids down. And so I make sure, that was one of my biggest pet peeves, was this homework packet Friday fun thing, because we don't know what a child's life is like. So very, very, very important. Okay, so we're going to take a quick brain break, because I know for me, I need a little break. I'm sure you all do too. This is very important. So I'm going to play some music. And I'm just going to stand up, because I know I need to stand up. Okay. Even as an adult, I know when you're in meetings, you'll notice adults get up and go to the bathroom, and we probably don't all have to really go to the bathroom. It's just some of us, even 20 minutes as an adult is a lot. So I need a break. So I'm going to stand up, I'm going to play some music, and I'm just going to inhale and exhale and just kind of move around a little. So take a second yourselves if you need to check your text, your phone, whatever, but let's take a break. I'll play some music. How many of you listen to this music, this type of music at home? Raise your hand, let me know. Yes, I love it, I love it, I love it. Yes. Great, great music. Somebody put great music in the chat. Yes, I love this type of music. And if I was in my classroom, I would have a video and I would show my students, and I would take time out of my very busy day of curriculum-based stuff, and I would probably throw something away and not do something, and take the time to show them what a mariachi band looks like. And we would look at the different instruments in a mariachi band, and then I would play the song again, and we would listen for the different types of instruments in the mariachi band. So important. I know there is so much, and when you begin teaching, or if you're teaching, you have all this stuff that you're expected to do. I do take, and I'm one too, I'm such a rule follower too, where I'm like, oh, I got to get all this done and I have to do all this stuff. But I've learned over the years that I could just cut corners a little bit. And if I cut corners and do more of getting to know my students and taking time to celebrate them, I'm able to move quicker with my curriculum in the long run. So, okay, now I haven't done all this in a year, being on Zoom and sharing my screen and doing all this. So I'm gonna, bear with me here. Let's see if I can do this. All right. So I think hopefully you guys can see my screen. And one second. Now I have to be able to see you guys up top. Okay. So I actually Renee is going to put the slideshow at the end in the recording as an email, I guess. So that was all. I talked all about breaking the barrier. So tricks of the trade. So I'm just going to give you a second to read through this. And then this is the stuff I'm going to talk about next.
Jolie,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt. I don't think I should show slides. My computer's completely bugging
totally.
out.
I already,
I'm not sure if it's going to die kind of situation.
okay.
Okay,
I
I'm
am
so
all-
sorry though, because I know I was going to show them and be helpful, and I'm being like a pain right now because of my tech
No,
issues. So I'm
I
sorry.
have it all. I'm all back
You're
to
good? Okay.
normal. Like, I feel like I got it all.
Thank
I
you.
don't-
Sorry, everybody.
It's all
time
coming
for a
back to me
computer.
now. So I got this. Spent a lot of time learning this last year and becoming tech savvy. So I think I'm good. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop sharing here. Okay. All right. So giant sticky notes. Here they are. These are amazing. And I have one, I have a couple, you can't really see. I thought you'd be able to see, but it's too far away, but I have them in the background. But these are the best things ever. They are very, very expensive. So at the beginning of the year, one of the most important things I ask for is giant sticky notes. Yes, I need pencils and glue and stuff like that, but I could also purchase that myself because I could get that cheaper. But these become my saving grace. And with my second language learners, I can't tell you how much of, how many of them rely on my giant sticky notes. Because what I do is whatever I teach, I put onto my giant sticky notes. And yes, sometimes it becomes taxing where I'm like, okay, I wish I had a recess time too. I'm going to run to the bathroom, but it's really important that I take time at recess or after school and transpose my math, especially math, onto my giant sticky notes. And then I have these up for the whole chapter. I will write the vocabulary that I'm talking about. So a lot of this, actually all the strategies that you learn for your second language learners, I use it for my whole class the whole time. Like it doesn't matter. I don't teach differently. I feel like actually I teach, well, I feel like a lot of times I tailor it more towards my second language learners at the beginning, but then I realize everybody needs this. Even my English only students need this. So, okay, my voice is going in and out. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Maybe I moved. Is that better? Okay. All right, sorry. I think I must have moved too far away. And I'm not speaking really loud, actually. So having these up all the time with vocabulary, and I'm going to show you how I break things down as well, but I will write sentences, I will break down vocabulary, I will put up math problems. I mean, I do everything on my sticky notes. Even though I'm doing it on the smartboard, I'll also have it on sticky notes, and then I leave it up the whole chapter, even during test time. And I'll have my students come up, Ms. McDonald, you left up the work. And I'm like, well, if you could figure out from my notes and look at my notes and then figure out how to do your problem, then you know what? More power to you. You know, and they're like, well, we're cheating. No, you're not. Don't say anything. You're not cheating. You're being resourceful. So, and it gives them an extra boost where they don't just, oh, here I go. I don't know anything. Well, yes. And my second language learners loved it. And I would always see them like, they'd be my ones that would be like this. And I know they knew the work. It was like that little security blanket that I gave them where if they didn't pay attention and they didn't know how to do the work, they, even by looking at my notes, they couldn't do the work. So it was just having something to give them that confidence that they were like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember how to do that. So again, confidence, 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 feeding them confidence, giving them respect, letting them know that they can do this. They got it. They could do it. Giving them all these tools of success that they might not be used to is just the most important thing. And when you do that, again, you see how quickly they learn and they want to learn. So let's see, my tricks of the trade. I have triple notes going here. So, all right, songs and movements. This may be hard for some, but I am one that, again, you saw I needed a brain break. I'm one that movement and songs are very important. I'm a kinesthetic learner, which means that I need to learn from movement, but I also feel that everybody can learn from movements. So when I teach, no matter what, if I'm teaching a science lesson and I just kind of see I'm losing everybody, I'll be like, okay, everybody stand up. All right, let's see. And then I'm all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, wait, okay, how am I going to do this? Okay, we're learning about the rock cycle, or let's say, I can say the rock cycle. Let's say the water cycle. Okay, we're learning about the water cycle. And I will use them to help me because guess what? Sometimes I can't even think because I have so much going on and I'll be like, okay, so the first thing I see up here is evaporation. Evaporation. Everybody stand up. What is something? How can we show evaporation? Like what is a movement we could do? And they all look at me like I'm crazy, but somebody comes up with an idea for evaporation. Oh, I love that one. Let's all try that one. Oh, evaporation, evaporation, evaporation. Great. Okay, let's look at the next one. And so literally, if I can't think of a song right off the top of my head, and as years go by, you will become quicker and quicker, but I use this for everything we do. I will just say, stand up. Okay, let's make some movements. When I do math and we're learning place value, everybody stand up. Okay, we have our ones. We have our ones. Everybody, ones, ones. And then, okay, when we're doing place value, we do our tens. To the right, to the right, to the right. And then we have our tens. And then, okay, does anybody have anything for hundreds? What can we do? What can we show? And then that way too, when they go to take their tests, which I don't call tests, I call them show it you knows, because tests give people anxiety. So I call them show it you knows, because if you knows and you've learned, then you can show me what you've learned. And if you haven't learned anything, I need to know. So I will watch students and they'll go like this. And they'll be sitting at their desk and they'll be doing the movements. And then all of a sudden it comes to them. And the second language learners, I feel that this is so important too. And it really, really helps them. And it gives them a brain break. And it takes them out of a situation where they might be doing work and they're like, I don't know what she's talking about. I have no idea. So brain breaks and movements and songs. I go online and I mean, nowadays there's so many songs for everything. Teachers make up songs for everything and they put it on YouTube. So if you can't think of something, look up whatever you're studying and look up the song and you'll find a song. Some teacher has written it. So important. And they're learning as well as moving around. For my 6th grade students, I would find a song and then we would break the song apart. And I use that as reading comprehension as well. So that was fun as well. Okay, modeling. Oh, actually, hold on. Oh, giving extra time for tests. So important for second language learners. giving them extra time, and it's not a punishment. And let them know that it's not a punishment. If they need extra time, I always give my students extra time. And once I started giving them extra time, my second language learners, I saw that they started trying more because they were like, oh, we actually have a little extra time. And then I would also have my second language learners say, what am I supposed to do again? Can you explain the directions again? And I never like tell them exactly what to do. We work on it together. Okay, let's read what it says. And I'm gonna model some ways to break things down, but I'll have them do it and we work through it together, but I always allow them to ask for clarification. And giving them permission to do that, really almost forcing them to be, does anybody have a question? And my English only students too. Nobody ever has a question. No, okay. Anybody else? Okay. And I always say too, when I'm done with the lesson, there is no way that you understood everything in my lesson. No way possible. And then some kids will start raising their hands and then more. And then I give tickets. That was when you answer or ask a question kind of thing. And so my second language learners all of a sudden wanted to ask questions too. And they had questions too. And then they're like, Mrs. McDonald, I don't understand anything you just taught. And how embarrassing is that a lot of times? I know I was not a second language learner, but I do have processing problems, and half the time, and I'm very hyper, so I would only hear half of a lesson. And I was always embarrassed because I didn't hear half of it. And so I always tell my students, and I give them permission, if I see that you're listening to my lesson and you're not understanding, guarantee you're not the only one that's not understanding my lesson. I'm going to go back and I'm going to reteach quickly again. And I started using that practice, and you would be surprised how your second language learners all of a sudden started, can you go over that again? Oh, well, I'm sure we all need to go over that again. Or they would come up after class. Can you? But I feel that a lot of times the second language learners are embarrassed, and they have been belittled at some point in their schooling where they don't want to ask and they're embarrassed to ask. And I always tell my students, every year that goes by and you're not learning, you're that much farther behind, and it just piles up and piles up and piles up and piles up. So being an advocate and teaching your students at a young age that it should never be embarrassing. And if they've moved on, like I had a lot of sixth graders that were just so belittled and so broken by the time I got them in sixth grade, it broke my heart. And I knew that I need to make sure that they were never afraid to ask a question, that they needed to speak up for themselves. And I can't tell you how much growth I saw with my second language learners in sixth grade who were just absolutely broken. So giving them permission, giving them time. I had a student who he was a second language learner, and he also had attention issues. And his mom would always be like, I have no idea what to do with him. He says he knows how to do the homework, but he doesn't. He's not studying. He's doing nothing. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, just have him come into my class before school. And so we would go over things. And I always tell my students too, you can find everything on YouTube. So, and I still tell my daughter that, because in college, she's like, I don't understand my math lesson, Mom, and I have my final. And I'm like, YouTube it. So I show my students how to YouTube and type in what you're trying to learn. And I guarantee there is a video for that. As I started getting more tech savvy, and had a Google Classroom. Whatever I would teach, if it was math or something, language arts or science, I would find a video and attach it and put it in my Google Classroom, because a lot of times students need to hear things 1, 2, or 3 times. A lot of times the second language learners don't have a place to study. They don't have note cards. They don't have the tools to study. So I have oodles and goodles and note cards, and I show them how to use note cards and how to study. And, oh, anybody need note cards? I'll just keep the note cards right up here. You can use, and I show them, and then they are like, oh, okay. And then you can play games with the note cards. I show them how to find videos. I always give a little bit of time in the morning, and I know as teachers we're very busy, but I found myself coming in a little bit earlier. And even though, to be totally honest, I didn't want my students in the morning every day, because I'm like, oh gosh, now I have to teach a half an hour earlier. I found that letting them come into the classroom and them say, Mrs. McDonald, I didn't understand the math and I couldn't do the math at home, my homework at home. And I said, okay, well, get out your math workbook. They get out their workbook. Let's look through and see what you learned. Okay, let's start at the beginning of the lesson. So, okay, read through it. Now read through the next part. Okay, now let's get to your homework. Let's see what it says to do. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. Oh my gosh, I get it. And I'm like, whoa, it's magic. And I sing them the song, whoa, oh, oh, it's magic. And I said, I didn't do this. You did this. You did this on your own. But in order to be able to do homework, you have to go back and look at what you've learned before. And then if you have questions, then you could come in and I could help you. But I think for English only kids too, I think nobody ever shows them too. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, whatever I learned in school, by the time I got home, I forgot. So when I had to sit down to do homework, it was like, and then I'll have teachers that say, oh, we don't send the workbook homeworks. We're afraid the kids are going to forget what to do. And I say to them, how are they going to do their homework? Like, you can't expect, they have so much going on with their day. How do you expect them to remember what they did? So very, very, very important. Let's see. Make sure you're checking for clarification. Never assume. Never ever assume they understand. Just walk over and you can just say, did you understand what the directions are? Did you need me to help you a little bit? Let me help you get started, kind of thing. Or where are you stuck? What part of this assignment are you stuck on? Okay, well, I don't know how to do the beginning. Okay, well, maybe let's go to the next part. Let's see what you can do, because that's another thing too. It's like you'll have kids that sit there all day and they won't do anything because they get stuck at the beginning. Well, let's find something on this worksheet that you know how to do. And then all of a sudden, oh, I know how to do this. And then all of a sudden they get their wheels moving and then they know how to do everything. So again, setting them up for success. You know, if you need to help them and do the first problem for them, do it. Do it. Don't let them sit there and just go, they don't know what they're doing. They didn't pay attention. You know what? They'll get help when they get pulled out. No, that's not best. That's not best practice. So that is very important. What I'm going to, let's see, because again, I need a brain break. So I'm gonna, one of the things that I do notice with my my EL students too is that half the time I think they're hearing wah 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 a lot of times too, because it's just too much information at one time. So I will let them sit up front. Sitting up front with a clipboard is never a punishment. Okay, I love, like, I make it a big deal. Come sit up front, kind of thing, because that way too, while I'm teaching, I could look down and I can help them. And I could just say really quietly, okay, did you underline that? Did you get that? Did you, or, and they need a break. They need to move to a different spot a lot of times. And I'm a big one on brain breaks, because after 15-20 minutes, we all start losing in concentration. I'm sure my voice starts to sound like wah 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 to you all too. So I know yoga kind of thing, taking is it not yoga, but just I forgot. See, I can't even think right now. But just taking time to become one. And sometimes I'll tell them that my nephew used to say chi when he would have to do yoga. So we're going to take a brief brain break, and you guys could do what you need to do, but I'm just going to inhale and exhale, and I'm going to have my chi fingers ready, and I'm going to inhale and I'm going to exhale. Inhale. And sometimes I'll talk to my students too, and we do this and during transitions where it'll be language arts time, and I'll be like, let's inhale language arts, and we're going to exhale out everything else in the world, what we're going to have for snack, who we're going to play on the playground. Inhale in math, exhale out everything else. And they just seem to love that, and it's just getting them in the right mind frame, in the right mindset. So I'm going to inhale in, because I'm going to show you, and I'm going to model for you how I teach. And I call it break it down, break it down, break it down. And I always tell, break it down for me, fellas. And so every time I'm like, all right, we're going to break it down. And this is how I teach, period. And it was really kind of funny, because my son, he is a sophomore in high school, and he has this chemistry teacher, and he always goes, Mom, my chemistry teacher, she reminds me so much of you. Like every time I go to her class, like I see a lot of you in her, but like as a teacher, like I know that's how you teach, because you share things. And so the other day he was telling me, he goes, Mom, I feel like I actually understand chemistry. And I get moles. I don't even remember chemistry. I don't even think I took chemistry in high school, but he's getting A's on all his tests. He doesn't really study. He's that kid that I didn't like in school that never had to study. But he was saying, Mom, you know what I love about my teacher is that she literally, like, she'll teach us something and we have no idea what she's talking about. Like she'll introduce the beginning of the lesson and we'll have no idea what she's talking about. Then the next time we come to class, she will explain it in depth and help us work on it and really help us learn it and work through it where we're not doing it on our own. And then the next class, she does it a little bit more. And then the next class, she doesn't do it as much. And then we take a test. And he's like, and then I get an A on it. And he's like, and I love the way that she does that because I feel successful. And I was like, well, your teacher is just like me because that is how I teach. So I'm going to show you a slide of break it down. And then I'm going to show you exactly how I break it down. So again, haven't done this in a while, so. Okay, I'll just give you a second. Erica, yes. Do you have a question? Did my screen stop sharing? Okay, so a little teacher tip too. I have my students, even if it's math, science, history, whatever I'm teaching, I will be like, okay, I'm gonna have you read through this right now. Just go ahead and read through it. If you don't finish reading, it's okay. Don't worry if you don't get to the end, because of course some kids finish really quickly, some kids don't, but it gives me time as a teacher to look to see what I'm teaching, go over everything again, and especially at the beginning, as you are a beginning teacher, you want to feel successful in your lesson. You want to review your lesson. I seem to switch grade level. Well, I switched grade levels a lot. I also was one of those who I love to do adoptions, curriculum adoptions. So my my curriculum was never the same. So even as a seasoned teacher, I would always be teaching new and different things. So I would always, no matter what I was teaching, I'd always need a second to collect my thoughts, even though I already knew what I was teaching at the beginning of the day. I also needed to just kind of look at my lesson and where I was going with my lesson. So I would always give my kids time, just read, just look at what we're doing. I'm gonna give you a few minutes. And that when I say begin, we're gonna begin, and don't worry if you didn't get to it or not. It gives me time and it gives you time. So very important. So I'm going to model. Can't say that enough. Again, never assume your students know what you're talking about. And that, I think, is one of the hardest things as educators is I feel that educators need to put themselves in their students' shoes a little bit more, kind of thing. They need to be in their audience as well and think like, okay, I just taught a lesson, and I know we all are taught, like some are going to get the lesson really well, some of them aren't, but then they move on. Okay, moving on. Some of them aren't going to get it. Oh, well, moving on. Okay, I'm one that I can't accept that. I literally, I can't accept the fact that students aren't learning, okay? Because if I am a good teacher, all my students can learn. All of them can learn, no matter what disability they have, no matter what language barrier they have. If I am a successful teacher, my students can learn, and without me giving up. So very, very important. So a lot of students get really angry at me and annoyed because I don't let them work on their own at the beginning of the year. They just can't. On some things, maybe, but I just feel that modeling and showing them exactly what they don't know everything. And a lot of kids come in and are very cocky and they feel like they know how to do everything. And they really don't. And they haven't been taught just exactly how to do things. They're being taught the information, if you think about it, but they're not being taught how all the steps in order to get to the information. So as soon as, and that's why I love teaching the upper grades, because as soon as the information got really, really hard, you would start to lose more and more kids because no one ever taught them how to get from point A to point B. The teacher would get up there and do their lesson and they got from point A to point B and everybody moved on. So I don't care who you are. In my class, I model. So I'm going to show you, and let's see here, desktop. Okay. I bought this thing last year, and bear with me here. Okay. So I'm going to start with math. And I picked something pretty simple. Okay, this was another thing too. I'm really kind of anal about stuff. And last year, with everything being on Zoom, I would ask teachers, how did you teach math like online? You know, because it's really hard to write and use a chalkboard and do whatever. And they're like, oh, we make it work. And I'm like, okay, math, like making it work was almost like everyone was faking it to make it. And so I saw somebody bought one of these XP pen pads, and I had to buy it, and it literally saved my life. And I told my students, because I'm writing to the left of me and I can't see what I'm writing because it's just a blank board. So I told them at the beginning, my writing is going to be really sloppy, but as the year goes by, it'll be good. So, and then getting to learn how to use this wasn't fun, the easiest thing, but we all laughed together. So what I do for everything at the beginning of the year is I'll teach a lesson, and then we go through what's expected, and I'll say, okay, let's read this. Addition facts, word problems. Okay, so we know we're doing word problems. Let's read the directions. Write and solve an addition equation for each problem. Okay, well, I know that I probably need to read that again because I just read it really quickly and there's a lot, I feel like they're asking a lot. So let's break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down. Write and solve. Okay, does everybody understand what write and solve means? Do you understand the word write? Okay, and the word solve. Okay, and they would put thumbs up, whatever. Great, okay, all right, so we're gonna move on. Write and solve an addition. Okay, do we all know what addition is? And then I might say, okay, who can explain addition? Great, an equation. Ooh, let's see, do we have somewhere, let's look for the vocabulary word equation in our classroom. Oh, there it is on the sticky note. Okay, so we know what an equation is for each problem. Okay, cool. We're not done. I don't know if you guys remember this commercial. Wait, there's more. I always do that. Wait, there's more. We're not done. We are not done. We need to really break this apart. So as we do the problems, and I don't know about you, but when I'm on a roll, sometimes my brain has a little like brain fart kind of thing, and they all laugh. Ooh, and I said, and then I'll forget what I'm doing, but all of a sudden I'll need to go back and reread my directions, or I'll go and I'll do something and then I'll need to come back. So let's highlight the important things. So I think writing is important. Okay, because if you don't write it, you're not doing the work. And then we have to solve it. Don't forget, we have to solve it. And we're doing an addition equation. Okay. So now if you forget what you were doing, you're just going to look back up here and you have highlighted write, solve, addition equation. Because I know a lot of you, when you have to go back and reread a whole bunch of directions, you're like, ow, that's just too much for me. Shut down, shut down, shut down. So now that we've highlighted the important things, I just look back up and I go, write, solve, addition, equation. All right, I'm right back on track again. Cool. Okay. So then I would take and I would have them look at the problem and we would read the problem. The city zoo has 6 white rhinos and 7 black rhinos. How many rhinos does it have in all? Okay, that's a lot of words for me and a lot of words that we probably don't need. So let's figure out what we do need. What do we need? Okay, we're going to be doing an addition problem. Okay, so the city zoo has 6. Okay, well, I think that's an important thing. We need the word, we need 6. 6 white rhinos. Okay, well, we know we're dealing with rhinos, but we really need that 6. And 7, ooh, very important, black rhinos. How many rhinos does it have in all? And I put my bell away, but I have a bell. Ding, ding, ding. There is something very important in here that's going to tell us what to do. What do we do? It's in all, in all. Woo! That is so important. And then I would say, I have all these, I'd have an addition problem or addition sign, a subtraction sign, a division sign, and a multiplication sign. And inside that sign or around the sign, I would have all the words that would explain what you like. So for addition, the word in all would be with addition. So the kids could go back and they might not remember and they'd be like, oh, in all. And then they would see, oh, in all is addition. Okay, in all. So we would do that. And then we would look at the problem. 6 plus 7 equals 13. Now, again, some of you and some of my students are like, oh, wow, my gosh, Mrs. McDonald, we know how to do this. And some of them would go ahead. Okay, that's totally fine. But I would also find that I would have some EOs, my English only students, really eating up everything that I was teaching, and they would underline and highlight. And I would always tell my students, when I come and help you, you better have things highlighted, circled, and underlined, or I can't help you. And they'd raise their hand and I'd walk over, and of course I would help them, but they had nothing underlined, nothing highlighted. And then I would say, okay, let's do this together. And then all of a sudden again, whoa, oh, it's magic. And I'm like, I didn't help you. You just helped yourself. You did the problem all by yourself. I did nothing. I did nothing. Nothing. But you went through and you took the time, and I have on one of my things, if you don't put in the time, you don't get paid the dime. So I use that all the time. Oh, you didn't take the time to underline and highlight. Well, you're going to have a difficult time doing it. And all of a sudden, look. And my one student that I told you about at the beginning, who came in and literally was that student that didn't work, and the kids would be like, oh, he does nothing. I have to tell you that he became one of the highest kids in math, because he started realizing that he was really, really good in math. And I would go over and he would have these long math problems he'd have to do, and he would just be sitting there, and I'd be like, okay, sweetie pie, let's take a look. Let's look at your notes. Okay, what do you need to do? What's the first step? And then he'd be like, oh, I have to do this. And then he would do it. And then all of a sudden it became easier and easier. And he was one of my students too, that would be like, Mrs. McDonald, can I stay in at recess and finish my math test? Absolutely. And then I would share with the teachers at lunch. I'd be like, oh, so-and-so, he's getting an A in math, 6th grade math. And they're like, no, they wouldn't believe me. And they're like, well, you must be helping him, or, oh, maybe this is just his year to shine. And I wasn't bragging. It was just like, I'm so proud of him. Like, he's my kid. He's my boy. Like, I worked with him, and look what he's doing. And this is what I did. This is all I did, was break things down and make it easy. Make it easy so you don't have to read. I ask my students, who loves to read? You have 10% that love to read. The rest really don't. So when you get a problem, you don't want to read the problem a lot of times, or you don't want to read the text because it's so much. Another thing I talk about too, that's really, really important, and I'm kind of going out of order, but it reminded me, is I was one of those students where I was not a fluent reader at all. And I was always embarrassed. And even as an adult, I do not like reading in front of other adults because I was so embarrassed as a child and was laughed at, and I didn't feel confident about it, that it's kind of stuck with me my whole life. So no matter what grade I teach, I had somebody show me a magic trick. And I shared this with the group I talked with on Wednesday, is that no matter how many years of teaching you have done, you can always learn something from somebody. And because of that, I feel that I could actually say that I am a successful educator because I've never put a block up and said, oh, I know everything, you know? And so when somebody shares something with me, especially a reading specialist, and they show me something, I'm going to take what they're telling me and I'm going to utilize it. And again, you'll notice as you start teaching, you'll see those teachers who have been teaching forever and they're very stuck in their ways. Don't ever be stuck in your ways. So I had this lady show me the 3 magic reading fingers. Okay. And I know a lot of teachers will say you can't use your fingers when you read, but again, everybody learns differently. Everybody sees differently. And believe it or not, tracking, and the way our brain works, some people literally, and I'm one of those, I can't read without tracking. So if that was the biggest mistake too, is when a teacher would say to me, you can't use your fingers. Well, my brain doesn't process things. When I look at things, it doesn't process it the same way. And my eyes go everywhere. And so for me, when somebody says you may not use your fingers, it angers me. It really frustrates me because our brains all are wired differently. So I know even as I work with my older students, I'm like, I don't care how old you are. And I explain to them, and I honestly, I do read with my fingers. I do track. So I tell them too, like, so I'll have students that won't want to read. Everybody needs to read. So if you're using 3 fingers, it is magic. It is the craziest thing ever. So I'll have somebody read that I know isn't a strong reader, and I'll have them read the directions. And it's like write and solve and dish. And it's like, okay, like everyone's like pulling their hair out, and it's like, ooh. Okay, take out your 3 magic reading fingers. Read it again using your 3 magic reading fingers. And I kid you not, I wish I have a video. It'll be fluent. Write and solve an addition equation for each problem, because using 3 fingers literally helps your eyes to concentrate and look to see. And it also like helps with seeing the next words going on. And when I taught 6th grade, a lot of them, they were like, oh, I don't want, okay, whatever. And I'd be like, who heard the difference? Like, and the student won't hear the difference, but everyone will raise their hand. And I'm like, was that amazing? Let's all clap for so-and-so. Like, I know, and I'll say to the student, I know, okay, I might take out my phone and I might record them and I might play it for them, and then they hear the difference. So it's not the fact that you're a baby and you need to use your fingers to track. It's our brains do not process things the same. So some people need to use 3 reading fingers. So a little tidbit of information that really helps my second language learners as well become confident, fluent readers, and want to volunteer. Then all of a sudden I have my second language learners, I want to read the problem. I want to read the problem. And that's what you want. You want your second language learners to feel successful and invested. So 3, your magic reading fingers, so important. So for reading comprehension, where's my reading comprehension? I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to pull this up. So I'm just going to show you this quickly. But what we would do is I will read through the whole story and we will read it together. Usually I read it because I want to model good reading practices, you know, like at the end of our sentence, kind of our voice goes down. So I'll read the whole story. Sometimes I won't even read a whole story. And that I piloted this reading curriculum that none of the teachers in our district liked, but I loved it. Of course, because the thing is that sometimes you didn't read a whole story. And a lot of the teachers were like, no, we have to read the whole story. We have to get to the end. And I was like, no, but they're teaching so many things within that one story that we don't have to get to the end. Maybe the next story we might get to the end. And they were like, no, I have to, my students need to read the whole story. You can't teach language arts without reading a whole story. And I'm like, yes, you can, because there's a reason why we're doing it this way. And if you have extra time, tell your students to read the end of the story. So a lot of them didn't like that, but I learned so much from this pilot that I did. And this was one of the things that I did learn, is that either I would read a whole story or I wouldn't. So let's say I'm not going to read the whole story. I said, okay, well, we're going to just take one paragraph out of this whole thing, and we're going to break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down. And I will have somebody, there was one that I know I wanted to do. Well, I could pick anything actually. I'll have maybe somebody read it through one time, and then I'll be like, okay, well, we're going to break this down. Let's go back and read the sentence again. The next morning when he went into the shop to make the shoes, what did he find? Okay. And did you all understand that? And some of them, yes, no. Okay, let's break it down. The next morning, do we all understand that? Oh, yeah. Okay, he went into his shop to make the shoes. Do we all understand that? And if there's something they don't understand, you will find, again, if you set your classroom up for students wanting to volunteer and just feeling so comfortable, well, Mrs. McDonald, I don't understand make. I don't know. I know that's silly, but okay, well, let's go back and let's figure out what that would mean. What do you think it would mean? And I would have that child work through it. I wouldn't pick somebody else to say, oh, can somebody explain what make means? Because all of a sudden you've showed that student that they can't do things on their own, kind of thing. Let somebody else figure it out for them. No, they need to figure it out on their own. So they asked the question, we're going to figure it out. So we'll figure it out together. And again, that's another way to get buy-in. Oh, well, and honestly, it might take a lot. You might have to really, really coach them to almost give them the answer. But once they do it on their own, whether you've coached them a lot or not, all of a sudden they're invested again. So then I'll go through and I'll do the whole thing. Then I'll do the next one and we break it down. This is really good for science and social studies as well. But I do this for reading comprehension. So we break it down. Okay, this is something that I find is life-changing. Now we're just going to highlight the important things, because I know when you ask students to highlight, they highlight everything. And I didn't realize that until I started teaching 6th grade. Even in 4th grade, I did learn it a little bit, but I didn't realize like how you can't even write anything like if everything is highlighted. So I really go through and I'm like, okay, let's take a look and see what's really important. The next morning when he went into his shop, okay, is there anything that we should highlight? Do we need to highlight the word the? And some of them are like, yeah, no, you don't need the word the. Like, let's leave that out. Okay, maybe next morning, that's important. Okay, when he went into his shop. Okay, well, we know that we're kind of talking about a guy and he's going into, so we don't probably need to do when he, well, maybe went. So maybe the next morning went into, well, we probably don't need his. we need to know where he's going. Shop to make the shoes. Okay, well, we probably need to know that he is making shoes. Okay, so I go through this, and let me tell you, it takes a whole trimester. Sometimes it takes 2 trimesters. But I don't let my students do this on their own at all until maybe the 2nd trimester. And then I show them, okay, so when you have to answer a reading comprehension question, you just come back and you look at the highlighted things. When kids have to go back and find an answer, even if it's not in the text and they're having to just look at the text and then infer, they need to go back and be able to find information. I know for me, honestly, until I learned to teach this way, I didn't do things this way. And I was like, oh, I wish somebody taught me before, because it really would have helped me in school. Because I was one that's like, oh my gosh, now I have to go back and read the whole thing. I don't even know where that information is. But now if you just have things highlighted, you just are like, next morning went into shop to make shoes. Okay, that's not where the answer is. So this is a lifesaver when kids have to put the answers in their own words. Okay, all right, so especially our EL students. All right, so it says next morning went into shop, make shoes. Okay, so you have to put that into your own words. What did he do? Can't use exactly what they said, but let's just, okay. He went into the shop the next morning to make shoes. Oh, good, that is so good. That's not what they have here. You just took the information and switched it around and you wrote a sentence. You are amazing. Awesome job. And all of a sudden, you know, again, you will see them sitting up straighter and they're like, okay, well, now I can attack these problems. Wow, this is great. So important. So this is what I do the whole first trimester, no matter what grade I'm teaching. And sometimes they're like, Mrs. McDonald, I'm like, I don't care. You will come back and thank me. You might not be thanking me this year, but one day you will thank me. And if you don't find me to thank me, you'll thank me in your head. But this is the way I'm going to do it. I don't care. There's a method to my madness. Bear with me. So then 2nd trimester, they will do it in a group. And I will discuss what a group looks like. Because of course, there's always a bossy one in a group. There's always a passive one in a group that is just like, just tell me what to write. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Then you will have a 2nd language learner in the group that is just like, will sit there and copy everything everybody has on their paper. Oh, they'll wait till the end and then they'll be like, can I see your work? And then they'll just copy it down. You will have an arguer, somebody who argues with every little thing the bossy person has to say. So, and no matter how you do your groups, it doesn't matter. It just always, literally always ends up that way. Even as adults, and you guys are all in school, I'm sure you notice too, when you're in a group as an adult, it always ends up, it's the same all the way through. So I always explain to my students, everybody has a job. Everybody has to do their job. If somebody is not doing their job the way you think they should be doing their job, let them do their job. Don't criticize them, motivate them. Say to them, you know what, you haven't answered something. Why don't you try it? Why don't you try to answer this? And if they can't, what does Mrs. McDonald always do? Oh, she helps them to find the answers. And then you always have your one student that loves to help, or your bossy student actually teaching them, and they work on their own and they learn to find the answer on their own. You may never sit in a group and do nothing. That is not an option. And so I will take a week, believe it or not, and we will practice working in a group. And it will be something silly, and it might not be actual work, but I will have my group norms, what I expect. Everybody has to be doing something. And if somebody's not, of course, you have a tattletale that comes up. Mrs. McDonald, so-and-so is not doing something. Then I go over and I'm like, how can we fix this problem? Not like, Joe, you're not doing your work. You need to start working. What are our norms? Our norms say everybody has to do something. Okay, so what can we do to figure this out? Like how can how can we have Joe interact in our group? Well, Joe doesn't want to do anything. Okay, no. How can we have Joe want to do stuff and answer in our group? And sometimes it's so hard to be positive and you just literally want to go over to the group and be like, Joe, just do something. But if you take the time to be like, okay, Joe, let's figure it all out. And then you walk away and you're like seriously. But it literally, it helps. I'm telling you, it helps. It's exhausting.
Jolie, I've been dealing this with one of my kids right now. So you're talking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, I'm like living this with one of my 15-year-olds right now. Like, just get it done, right? Or do something. Just do something.
So this is exactly how I teach. And then by the third trimester, they will be doing things in groups or on their own. And then people are like, but how do they take tests? Well, they do tests on their own. Okay, they can. But when I do a math test, I literally go through the whole test before we do the test. And I go through the first trimester. I go through and we go over the whole test, highlight, underline directions, the whole test before I have them take the test. Second trimester, we kind of do that as well. And then I will tell them, you can redo your test. If you have a problem, you can come up to me. But if you don't have anything highlighted or written down, don't waste my time, because you have just wasted your time because you didn't put in the time to do the work. I've given you all the tools, you know what to do. They're around the classroom, so I make sure I'm always setting them up for success. Very, very important. One thing that I also came up with, which was a little brain break with them, is we talked about riding a bike. I talk about, whether, because I said with the older kids, who knows how to ride a bike? Most of them did. All right, well, when we ride a bike, we have to pedal. And so I'll have them pedal. Okay, we're pedaling. Pedal with your feet. One foot, then the next foot. And I said, you don't pedal with just one foot. You have to pedal with both feet, and then you have your handlebars and you have to steer. You have to do all of it in order to be successful in riding a bike. So when you sit down to attack your work, you can't just do half the work in order to be successful. You have to do all of it. And you might have to modify some of your second language learners' work. Totally fine. Totally fine. If they can only do 5 problems successfully, cut it down. Would you rather them have them actually take the time to do 5 problems successfully, or just shut down and do nothing? Absolutely nothing. So set up for success always. And so I'm always like, I would always use the bike thing that we talked about. And I walk over and I'd be like, are you riding your bike? Or just halfway, oh, you probably aren't steering there. Everything you kind of make a little, oh, it looks like you're not steering. You probably should steer your bike a little bit so you get to the right spot. So I use that analogy a lot with my students. So there is that. And get my slides back up here. Let's see. And then my last slide is one of the things I talk about too is it takes 30 days to create a good or a bad habit. Very, very, very important. And the students love that. Behavior modifications and work modifications are very, very important. Again, every student is different. Every student has a gift. I had a student last year, and this absolutely broke my heart. So I taught online only last year, and this student ended up moving to Las Vegas, but didn't tell anybody, or didn't tell the school, obviously. And I all of a sudden noticed his background was different, and I was like, oh honey, I see her in a different place. And he loved that. He was like, oh, she noticed. And he's like, yeah, I'm in Las Vegas. And I was like, oh, what are you doing there? And I said, why don't you stay out after and we'll talk a little bit. So he's like, oh, I'm living with my aunt. Okay, we got that far. And then all of a sudden his work, he wasn't coming on to Zoom. And I was like, wow, he's missing math Zoom. So I would ask, I'm like, honey, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm alone all day long. And I'm like, ooh, okay, this probably isn't good for a sixth grader to be alone all day long. Okay, well, I need you to set a timer. So we worked to figure out how it would work for him to come on for math. Then it became that he would come on, but he wouldn't do any work. And 2 weeks into me, like every day I was like problem solving, he goes, Mrs. McDonald, I didn't want to tell you, but I don't have any of my books. My dad told my sister to pack all our stuff in a suitcase, and within 2 hours we were gone. And he goes, I don't know how long I'm even going to be in Las Vegas, Mrs. McDonald. They told me I was only going to be here for 3 weeks, and it's been a month now, and I don't know when I'm coming back home. And I like literally had to hold it together because I just wanted to cry. And I was like, I am so glad you told me the truth. And I said, because now that you told me the truth, I can work with you. I'm going to show you how to find your math online. I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you how to do that. Mrs. McDonald, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I said, well, I appreciate you being honest with me, because now that you've been honest with me, I can tailor everything to your needs. And that is key. That is key. It's not that I'm expecting less from him. It's not that I'm treating him any different than anybody else. It's just, we're not all the same. We're not all the same. So then time went on and he still wasn't doing his work. And I'm thinking asynchronous work. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if I was a sixth grade boy and nobody was home making me do my work, I wouldn't do my work either. No way. So after 3 weeks, I was like, okay, sweetie pie, here's the deal. From 2 to 3, I have office hours. And every day, if you come on from 2 to 3, whatever work you get done, that's what I'm going to grade. That's how your report card's going to be. That's it. And he's like, really? Absolutely. Absolutely. I am going to be your mom. I'm going to be there for you. That's all I'm grading. And kid you not, every day from 2 to 3, and I didn't even have to tell him to set a timer. He would come on and he would work every day for me. And that motivated him to start working on his own. And he was so proud of himself. And really, I didn't do much. I honestly, all I did was invest in him. All I did was care about him. And all I did was take time to get to know him. That's all I did. It's not like I
Jolie, you just, sorry, I'm like crying over this. You just said I invested, I took time, and I cared for him. So I know you're saying you didn't do much.
Yeah.
But if every teacher did those 3 things,
Absolutely.
our entire system would be very different than it is right now.
Absolutely 110 million gajillion%. And all of you as beginning teachers, that is the most important thing. And I know that our plates are so full. And as educators, there is so much that is asked of us and from us that it gets really, really overwhelming. But to me, the greatest joy that I've had as an educator is getting to know my students and loving them and finding out their gifts and what's important to them and what they excel in. I shared with another group that I had, one of my second language learners, she was a singer. And she would tell me one day, she said, Mrs. McDonald, I love to sing. And I was like, oh, sweetie pie, that is so great. And this was my first year that I was teaching 6th grade. And I am a very much out of the box thinker. And I don't like anything normal. So I came into 6th grade and the 6th grade teachers for graduation were like, okay, this is what we do. And I'm like, I love you all, but this is really boring. Okay. And this should be a celebration, not like snooze fest. So if we're celebrating our students, we should, and our students got up and they sang like the slowest song in the whole entire world. And it was like one song. And I'm like, they've been here kindergarten through 6th grade. Let's make this fun kind of thing. Let's showcase our students that love to sing or play music or are in choir or something like that, because elementary school is the time to invest. And they were like, well, I don't really know. And I'm like, fine, I'll just be in charge of graduation. I will do it. And I was like, ooh, shouldn't have probably taken that on. But I was like, yes. So I had tryouts and I had students come and they would sing and they had to pick a song. And I picked this girl to sing a song, The Climb by Miley Cyrus. And then the ones who didn't make it, I was like, okay, you guys are going to be in the choir and I'm going to have us learn another song. And so they got to get up there and they got to sing another song. And then the chorus that we have at our school actually sang another song. And I had all these kids invested. And this one girl who I think she felt that this was her one gift was singing. She sang and she emailed me years later and was like, Mrs. McDonald, I just have to tell you that that one chance that you gave me, no one else believed in me. No one cared that I sang. No one ever took time. And she's like, I'm doing so well in school and I love to sing and I'm performing. And I was just like, oh, you know, my work is done. And I have a lot of those stories that now, you know, now that I'm sitting and going through all this, that I do. And I had a student last year who didn't do much work, very bright girl, didn't do much work, but man, she was so good at art and she was good at digital art. And I wanted to start my own business and I asked her to do my logo. And I said, but the only way you could do my logo is that you have to do some work. So she was like, okay. And she was absolutely amazing. And I would always tell her, sweetie pie, I know school might not be your thing, but in order to get through school and do all the things you want to do, kind of thing, you just have to do what we ask. And it might not be the easiest, but I want you to think about the work that you put into your digital art and all your little things you're doing. You kind of have to put some of that into your schoolwork as well. And she was like, yeah, I see what you're saying. I get it. And I said, and here's the deal, do some work and then email me some of your digital work. So she would do that. So that was our deal. Work, email me digital work. Or, okay, come show me what you have. And then I would relate it back to doing your work or something. Okay, well, that is so great. Now I want you to write me a paragraph on how you designed that. Oh, okay. You know, so it was great. So be an inspiration, you know, I can't tell you how many times I would walk into a classroom and there are so many amazing educators, but everybody is treated the same and everyone is treated equally. And we are all different. We all have a gift. We all think differently. And getting to know your students and what makes them work and what makes them tick and what makes them special is the greatest gift that you could give to yourself as an educator. So I think I'll end with that.
I love it. Jolie, are you open to taking some questions if anybody's interested?
No.
Okay, awesome. So anybody want to either unmute or go ahead and put a question in the chat, either way. And do not be shy.
Yeah.
The way Jolie is in the workshops is who Jolie is as a person.
And if I can't answer it, I'll be honest and be like,
totally.
I don't have the answer for you, sorry.
I know, hi, hello. I know you have been an educator for 20 years or over 20 years, but when you first started teaching, how was that? Did you ever have experience like beforehand with children, or how was that?
That is a great question. I love that you just asked me this because I have to, and it's something that I do share with all my students. So it's funny that you asked me this. I hated school. I was a horrible student. I struggled in school. School gave me so much anxiety because I never felt successful in school. Nobody ever made me feel successful. My mom worked really hard with me on studying for tests, and then I'd get to the test and I literally would fail. I took my permit test like 5 times. I took the CBEST like 5 times because I was never taught the way my brain works. And so I disliked school. But I taught dance, and I was a dance teacher at the age of 14. And then I got a job at a day camp, and I was in charge of their kindergarten program while I was going to school. And I really wanted to be a psychologist. And being a teacher was never, ever, I'm like last thing, because I hated school. I didn't even want to be in a classroom. It gave me anxiety. And I just didn't know what to do. And one day my mom said to me, she's like, why don't you just become a teacher? It comes kind of easily to you because you can relate to kids. And when she said that, that was key. I can relate to children. And that's what, like Renee was saying too, is the fact that we need to be able to relate to our students and remember that. And when my mom said that, I was like, I guess you are right. I mean, I am blessed that it does come easy to me, but it's because I relate to them, and I always put myself in their shoes. And so yes, I did work. I used to babysit, but it's kind of funny because I'm a very like high strung kind of person. So, and I don't have a lot of patience outside of the classroom. So when I'm like working with kids or my own kids or even like my grandson too, sometimes I feel like he could sense my anxiety or my stress of things too, where I have to remind myself that I need to relax and be in the moment and become one with him. And I know that like as educators, some of educators, it doesn't come naturally to them, but that's where you need to relax and become one with your class and one with your students. I hope that helped.
No, I literally, it's scary how I feel so similar to that situation right now. Like I wasn't good in school, like, and then I actually dropped out of college, changed my major, and decided to become a teacher way later. But I find this really inspirational, and I know that you're speaking, and I love your stories and your experiences, but I'm just trying to imagine you when you first started teaching and when you first had to handle like being able to manage a classroom and then have the parent teacher conferences and like all of that just being brand new. I'm just like trying to envision that, and I can't. I can't.
I knew Jolie towards the beginning, and she knew me towards my beginning of my teaching journey, you know, in the classroom. And she's been good from the start because she's authentic and she's herself. Jolie never tries to be somebody else. And I think in our system, Jolie and I were both similar in that we kind of go against the system. We're kind of seen as rebels. I don't know if rebel's the right words, but you know, we're definitely disruptors. We did things differently when we were in the classroom and would challenge the norms of the school. And so just stay true to who you are and try to get experiences anywhere. Like Jolie, even now, she's always like, oh, I'm willing to do this new stuff because she want to grows and be better. Like always think that way. Like, and if you're not working with kids yet, anybody who's on right now, this is the time. They're having massive expansions with after school care, before school care, summer programs. Preschool is going to be exploding. It's suddenly preschool is going to be free for everybody in a couple years, you guys. Do you realize that right now only the poor and the rich can afford preschool? That's the only, if you're in the middle, it's very hard to afford it. So we're in a spot right now that if you want to be with kids, get an experience in any context. I'm exactly like Jolie. I've been a dance teacher. I've been a preschool teacher. I've been a camp counselor, you know, and I've been a kindergarten teacher. You just take those different opportunities and go for it. And like, I'm sure Jolie can attest this, like everybody's hiring right now. If you want to be in education, get out of like your other job, because the other thing is a job. Get on the career path. The career path is doing stuff related to kids and families and your end goal. So sorry to speak there,
No,
Jolie.
that's
But
very fine.
you've always been good.
Thank you. I have to say 2 things too. I have one thing that I was going to tell a little story about, like when you said at the beginning, and I'm going to tell you about that in a second. But the second thing was that I have always been true to myself, and I made waves, but not in a way where they're waves. I'm not a complainer. Okay, so there are educators that are complainers and make waves, and there's educators like me. For example, I don't know if you all had, if any of you had to do this, but when your parents signed you up for school, you had to fill out a language survey. And if you wrote down like anywhere that your child spoke a second language, then your child had to take a special a test. And I don't know if any of you had to, and you were pulled out and you had to take this test. And then you had your levels of language. Like if you were a beginning language English learner, middle, or I can't even remember because it's actually been so long. And I was really angry at that test because first of all, you're pulling my second language learners out of my classroom, and they really need to be in my classroom learning. These are my students that need to be in my classroom. So you're pulling them out every day for a week and they're missing instruction, which gives them anxiety, and that kind of was bugging me. And then I wanted to know what was on that test. Like what did that test entail? Because I wondered if my English only students could pass that test. So I went to my assistant superintendent and I said, I really would love to administer the test. And they said, well, you can't administer the test because you're in the classroom teaching. And I said, but I want to know what's on this test. Like I want to grade the test. I want to be part of the test because I want to see how these kids are when they're taking a test. How are they sitting? How are they reacting? I want to look over their shoulders. Like, I don't feel that this is fair. And so they actually one summer offered for the kids to take the test during the summer so I could be part of it. And then I realized that my English only kids, they probably would be in the same boat as my second language learners because it was all reading comprehension tests. And it was not the easiest test. And so I always would take my EL scores with a grain of salt because I would think my EOs would be in the same boat. And so that was like a little wave that I kind of like, I needed to see. My other thing was my first year I started teaching, I had a student who whose mom was an addict. And when I taught kindergarten, I would have to teach lunch. So part of my curriculum or part of my day was my students would come in at lunch and I would eat lunch with them and I'd help them open their lunch and whatever. And then because kindergarten wasn't all day and the classes overlapped, I had to start my class in the multi-purpose room. And this mom would always bring her kid in late and she was always on something. And then she had her daughter with her that was little, and the mom would sit there and she would stay. And the things that would come out of her mouth were ferocious. And one day she bent over and she wasn't wearing underwear. And I, as a beginning teacher, I had 30 kids in my class. The morning class was the chosen class, and all the parents put their kids, the ones that were involved in the school, put their kids in the morning class, and all of the ELs, the parents who weren't involved, all were in my class. And so I had 32 kindergartners my first year, and a lot of them had a lot of issues. And so I had to learn to have a little bit of a voice kind of thing. And so I had the mom kicked out and she couldn't come into the class. And then she came to school one time and got through the office somehow, I don't know, and came into my class and started screaming and yelling at me. And I had to just calmly like call the office, and she was removed. And I felt so bad for the kid because his behaviors were horrific. And he would take staples and poke kids with them and pencils and poke kids. And I was trying to deal with that. I had a new student who came from Mexico, my little Heidi. I will never forget my little Heidi, who cried and spoke no English and was afraid of the world. I had so much going on. And I was just like, if I make it through this, I can make it through anything. I sang a lot, I danced a lot with my students, and I loved that. And this one student who had an addict for a mom, I loved him. I felt horrible for him. And I tried to get the school on board with me. Nobody would, nobody listened to me. And one day the mom came in and passed out at school. And the cops came, and then the little boy explained to me what his life was like at home. And at this time I was a beginning teacher, and it was my first year. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get to know him a little bit more. So I asked him questions, and what this 5-year-old told me, a 5-year-old should have never seen. And it just absolutely broke my heart. And I loved him even more. I loved him even more. And that it clicked in my mind, where I was like, the kids, they need love. Like they need your love. They need your respect. And the mom ended up going to jail, and the grandma took the kids. And then I got a phone call from the grandma that her husband had died of a heart attack, and she blamed it on me. And she said it was because I had the mom arrested, that she and her husband had to take the kids on, and that because of that, he couldn't handle it, and he had a heart attack and died, and it was all my fault. And after that, I thought to myself, okay, I made it through. And that was only from August to October, okay? All that went on. And I thought to myself, if I can make it through this one situation, probably one of the hardest, then I can make it through anything. And I always reminded myself of that too, where it was like, whew, this is not easy. But I also learned from my parents. You know, when I sat down at conferences, I would listen to them, and I would learn from them too. So I'm always learning. Like Renee said, I always want to learn. And I'm always taking in what they're saying. And I go home sometimes, which I probably shouldn't. And I think about it too much, but I don't know. It makes my life easier in the end. So, okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I know.
Thank you, by the way. I'm sorry that I brought up like some really like deep memories. I'm sorry about that, but
Oh,
thank
no.
you.
To be totally honest with you, it literally has shaped me and made me who I am as a teacher. And it really, honestly, it really helped. I always wonder what happened to my one student, kind of thing. But like I said, if I didn't have that experience, I don't even know, like, I know I'd still be where I was today, but I try to take the gifts, I call them gifts, and this is kind of off topic, but the difficult things that I'm given, and I always look at them as a gift. Right now, my mom was diagnosed with dementia at a young age, and everyone is always like, oh, it must be so hard on you. Well, no, well, yeah, it actually is hard on me. But I became involved in the Alzheimer's Association. I learned all about Lewy body dementia. It's a gift. And if my mom didn't have Lewy body dementia, I wouldn't be where I was and know all about and being involved in the Alzheimer's Association and becoming a stronger person. And I think sometimes when we're dealt bad cards in life, there are people that just kind of go with it as a bad card. And there are people that take it as a gift. And I always take the bad things as a gift because they are gifts, because they make me a stronger person maneuvering through those gifts. And as an educator, you will find you're going to be given some crappy gifts along the way. You might have a crappy principal, or you might have some parents that are just, not the best gift. But if you make them a gift and you make those students that you have a difficult time with a gift, you will be amazed how much of a stronger person you become year after year after year. So I'm glad you did ask me that question and I was able to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Julie, I want to add to what you're saying. It's just so amazing as I'm listening to your story and how you're sharing. And it is a gift. And in life, I feel that we experience, encounter, these rocks through life, right? That I call it difficult times. But it molds us of who we are and who we're becoming and where we have to be in life to support the families, the children, our parents, right? I just thank you for sharing. And this is something that I also share with students, that it's real life, right? It's not in the book, it's real life. And I think the importance of real life experiences is always important and powerful to share with others. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I had this one, Renee was saying too, that she would always send me, it's kind of funny, she would have her College of the Canyon students that would need to do observation hours. And Renee would always send me the ones that just wouldn't fit in other classrooms. And she's like, Julie, I know you just always love and embrace these people. And she sent me this student, and I'm still in contact. And there's two of her students that I'm still in contact with, but this one student, like they come in and they have to work in your classroom. But again, I want to know everything about them. So I always tell them, I'm sorry, I need to know everything about you. So I'm going to probably pry. And if you don't feel comfortable, don't say anything. But he told me that he grew up in LA and that he was very poor, and that he shared with me one day that his greatest gift that he got was a rock. And I looked at him and I was like, what? And he goes, the greatest gift I ever got was a rock. He's like, because I'm an artist and I love art. And my parents didn't have any money, to buy me all the art supplies I ever needed and whatever. And he's like, and one year my mom gave me a rock and paints for Christmas. And he's like, and that was my best Christmas gift I've ever gotten, because I took that rock and I created a beautiful painting on the rock. And he's like, and I still have that rock. And like I said, I learn from everybody. And when he told me that story, I literally, of course, started to cry. And I was just like, wow, how inspirational and how powerful that story was to me, to put in my little bag of stories kind of thing to share with others. He literally, he was like, I took all my problems. He's like, I decided I didn't want to go to high school where I lived. And so he took a city bus, and he said it took me hours to get to school. He learned to speak I think he spoke 5 languages. And the day he left, he drew me a picture, and I still have it. And so I'm friends with him on Instagram, and I'll remind him sometimes, and I'll be like, Jay, I still have your picture, kind of thing. But I just, having him come into my life and share all these difficult times, and he never let anything ever get him down. And that was something I took from him, that even though he's a student, I could still learn from him, and I did. So that is that. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So it's funny because I didn't share with you. I don't teach. I can't teach. I stopped teaching last year because it just became too taxing on me and too draining on me, because my beliefs and how I want things to go and how I feel things need to be in a classroom, I would get a lot of pushback from. And I don't know, maybe I should have moved different districts, maybe whatever, but I kind of got burnt out. And I decided too that the more I got to know myself, the more I realized that it probably would be better as a motivational speaker or helping kids motivationally than teaching, if that makes sense. So I decided to leave the classroom because I couldn't follow and jump, or I couldn't follow the protocol that had to be done. You guys are all in a good time where I think mental health and all these things are going to change education. And I guess I'm just at the tail end of that, where I wish things would have happened a little bit earlier, but I know education is going to take a huge turn and a huge change. Because there's so much that we teach that does not need to be done. And there's so much that needs to be done to help our kids to become successful people. And this is a great time to be in education. However, I hit burnout before that. And I always told myself that when I became that crabby person that would walk into my classroom and this was a job, that it was my time to go. And so, it was my time to go. I surprised everybody. Nobody thought that I would ever in a million years not teach. But I was very successful on Zoom. I had the most successful year last year. I had every single one of my kids on Zoom twice a day and turning in all their work. And I know when I spoke to other teachers that wasn't the norm. I never asked anybody. I just did what I needed to do. But when I realized that, and all my kids' scores, because we did have to test them, all their scores went up. I realized that maybe I need to do something else in life. So that's when I decided that I was done. So I'm just kind of taking a break this year and just figuring out what else I can do in life and where it takes me. So yeah, I needed to be done. So I was glad Renee asked me to do this because I've never got to do something like this. So it was fun. So thank you all. And I was just reading some comments. Any other questions?
I just noticed that I'm the only guy here, I think, on child development.
Well, thanks. We need
Yeah.
you. We need you because I have to tell you that there are some students, and we, at my school that I taught at, we actually were very lucky to have a lot of male students because some students relate to men different than they relate to women. And so
Yes.
it was so important because when we would look at these students, some of them we were like, oh, they're going to do better with this teacher. So thank you so much for doing this. You make a big difference. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, I have to tell you, I have not been back to the school that I taught at since, just to clean up my classroom last year. Just because everyone was like, oh, are you happy to retire and be done? Yes, but I worked my whole life. I worked since I was 14 years old. And so coming off of not working and just kind of having time to just, my life has been different. I haven't really wanted to go back to school. And being away from people, I haven't wanted to deal with like all the stress and anxiety kind of thing. I just wanted to take some time. So I am going to actually go to my school. And like I said, I have not been back other than to clean up my classroom for almost 2 years. So I'm excited today to go say hi to everybody and see everybody. So I get to go do that this afternoon. So thank you all for coming, and thank you guys so much for, I was just reading all these little comments. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it because I never get to talk to adults. I always talk to students. And so having your feedback is important. So thank you. And it motivates me to like want to do what I have next planned in life. So I appreciate it. Oh, thank you. All right, well, everybody have a great, great weekend. And like Renee said, I know that there's all these classes that you can take. And I know it was like a one-time deal. She was explaining that the state gave them money. So again, take all that you can and put them into your bag of tricks. And I know for me, I have a little full binder or a notebook, and I always write things down that I want to remember for teaching. And sometimes it gets really overwhelming. And so I just pick a few. I'm like, okay, well, I liked what this person said, and I liked what this person, and I'm going to try to implement that. And then I'll add a few more in and a few more in and a few more in, but make sure you have a whole bag of tricks. And I'll put my email in the chat as well too. I always like to help. So if you have a question or whatever, you can always email me. And there is my email. So thank you all so much. And thank you for all wanting to be educators. It's a very exciting time, a very weird time, but yet a very exciting time for beginning educators. I think you guys are in the right place at the right time. So thank you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, yes, this recording will be shared. And also my slide presentation. Absolutely.